Chapter 12:11, Seizing Someone's Life Back. No, she didn't accidentally cut her wrist, but rather did it on purpose to feed her own blood essence to her mother. Tang Xiu shook his head. Otherwise, given the speed of her treatment, it would have taken several months for her mother to recover. What did you say? Hu Shaoquan's hand trembled and he nearly drove the car to the roadside. After calming himself down, he hurriedly asked, but why would she do that? Doesn't she know she's gonna die doing that? I know that she's very filial to her mother, but she did it in the wrong way. Tang Xiu forced a smile. Feeding her mother with her own blood essence can indeed make her mother recover faster, but it's harmful to herself and even greatly reduces her lifespan. Given her current condition, I'm afraid she only has a month left. There's a chance that she only has 10 or 15 days left if she is not treated in time. Her mother may have recovered at this time, but it would only be temporary and she can't live long after Li Kai dies. Hu Shaoquan didn't understand the reason, but Tang Xiu's explanation was clear to him that Li Kai had fed her mother with her blood essence. She wanted her mother to recover fast, yet what she did was harmful to herself, and once she died, Auntie Zhuang also wouldn't die a natural death. What a silly girl. Hu Shaoquan spoke with a regretful and self-blaming tone. She's a silly girl indeed. Even though I've seen countless girls who were filial like her, one like her is very rare. Tang Xiu nodded. Anyways, care to answer me a question? After stabilizing his emotions, Hu Shaoquan replied, Tang Xiu, no. Divine Dr. Tang, I was quite restless before, so please forgive me for addressing you with your name directly. Please ask me anything, I'll answer it as long as it is within my knowledge. Tang Xiu didn't bother about how he addressed him and asked, I just want to know something. Do you treat Li Kai as your sister or have you secretly fallen for her? About this. Hu Shaoquan hesitated and countless thoughts filled his mind. He delayed his answer and drove the car for several kilometers before he finally let out a forced smile and said, I won't hide anything from you, Divine Dr. Tang. I might have seen her purely as my little sister in the past, but after we went through so many things, only then did I realize that I like her. Her strength, kindness, filial piety, pureness. If so, are you willing to give up your life for her? Asked Tang Xiu again. Please answer truthfully. How long she can live in the future will depend on your answer. Hu Shaoquan was shaken inwardly and categorically replied, if she can live on, I'm willing to pay the price with my life. If so, then prepare yourself mentally. Tang Xiu said, I may be able to alleviate the danger to her life, but it'll be at the exchange with your lifespan for her treatment. Having said that, Tang Xiu turned to look outside through the car's windows. His handsome face wore a slightly annoyed expression when he muttered to himself in a low voice, crap. Grabbing a life from the King of Hell will weaken me for at least half a month. Hu Shaoquan keenly heard Tang Xiu's mutterings and a complicated expression appeared on his face. He had been wary of Tang Xiu before due to his official identity, his magical and mysterious medical skills, his identity as the owner of magnificent Tang Corporation, and his status as a scion of Beijing's House Tang. But now, all his wariness towards him vanished. He could tell that Tang Xiu had no other thoughts and was purely moved by Li Kai, so he went to all lengths to help her and Auntie Zhuang out. At the Blue Starfish Mansion. Tang Xiu followed Hu Shaoquan and finally saw Li Kai, who was lying in a coma on the bed and her mother squatted at the bedside, looking slightly paled and eyes welled up with tears. Tang Xiu sighed inwardly as he came to her and said, please stretch out your hand. Aunt Zhuang stared blankly for a moment and wiped away the tears in the corner of her eyes. She looked at Hu Shaoquan first and asked, this person is? He's Divine Dr. Tang Xiu, Auntie Zhuang, replied Hu Shaoquan hurriedly. After hearing the answer, the woman immediately knelt and begged Tang Xiu. I've heard of your name for a long time, Divine Dr. Tang. Thank you for treating my illness. But now my daughter is sick again and I hope you can save her too. I'm willing to pay any price as long as you can save her. Tang Xiu didn't reply and reached out to hold her wrist and quietly checked her pulse. Afterward, he pulled her up from the floor and then said, "Treating and saving a patient is my duty even though the situations with you, mother and daughter, are rather special. The condition of your physique is okay, but you need to remember one thing. From today onward, the lives of you, your daughter, and Hu Shaokuan will be tightly tied together. If any of the three of you dies, the other two will also die." Eyes staring wide, An Shuang incredulously asked, "What do you mean by that, divine Dr. Tang?" "Originally, I didn't want to treat you since your illness wasn't caused by any ordinary disease but retribution from heaven." Tang Xiu faintly said, "I have no idea why you reincarnated here, but I can tell you that your daughter would have never been so miserable if it wasn't for your sake." The woman was as though losing her soul after hearing Tang Xiu's explanation and murmured, "Retribution? This is the retribution given to me by heaven? Meaning, all the things I see in my dreams are true?" "Yes. All of them are real," confirmed Tang Xiu. Bam. An Shuang slumped to the floor. She stared fixedly at Tang Xiu and suddenly blurted, "Then I was a demon in my past life? A female devil who massacred millions of lives?" "Yes." Tang Xiu nodded again. She abruptly jumped up and opened her palm. A cloud of black mist suddenly appeared and overflowed from her fingers as her other hand then quickly and powerfully hit her own chest. As she sprayed out a mouthful of blood mist into the black fog, she fiercely shouted, "I'll bear all the sins myself. My daughter has nothing to do with everything I did. If the gods want my life, then just take mine." Tang Xiu's expression drastically changed since he didn't expect that this woman was able to unleash magic power. The magic power she just unleashed may be weaker than the power of a Foundation establishment cultivator, but she would be very likely to meet her end here in a short time if she was allowed to use it. Tang Xiu punched the back of her neck to knock her out and then put her down on the sofa nearby. Afterward, he shook his head and sighed. "Like mother, like daughter. You both are very filial, which is quite a pity." Hu Shaokuan was shaken inwardly. He could only watch helplessly as the virtuous An Shuang unexpectedly unleashed black mist and spurted out a mouthful of blood. Disbelief was all over his face after witnessing the scene. He never once believed the existence of immortals nor demons before, but witnessing such a scene forced him to believe it. Hu Shaokuan. Immediately order someone to find a rooster, a black dog, a foxflower cat, and a turtle. Tang Xiu said, additionally, order someone to buy incense burners and spices. It's best to buy a willow sword too. Hu Shaokuan nodded without hesitation and quickly left. About an hour later, he had provided everything Tang Xiu requested. Afterward, the animals were butchered and Tang Xiu arranged the 4-spirit beast array as quickly as he could. Then, he spoke in a deep voice, "Ignore everything you see or hear, whatever it is. No one, not even ghosts, can hurt you. I'll seize back the lives from the hands of King of Hell, as well as cutting off the fate of you, Li Kai and her mother, so you all will be fateless people." Hu Shaokuan sat cross-legged on the floor and then tilted up his head to ask Tang Xiu, "What do you mean, a fateless person?" "Being a fateless person means that your destiny will disappear from this world, and will no longer be regulated by the 6 paths of samsara of this plane." Tang Xiu explained, "You will have to live like a rat and lay low while reducing contact with others to save your life, by avoiding the regulation of heavenly Tao." "I don't understand." Hu Shaokuan shook his head. "Shortly put, you are born, live and die normally here, but your destiny is no longer in this world, which means you'll truly disappear and never be born again if you die," said Tang Xiu. "Additionally, you'll also suffer a karmic backlash if you come into contact with others too much. The regulation of heavenly Tao will find you should you do so and you'll be ruthlessly erased." "How do we go on living if we can't communicate with others?" then asked Hu Shaokuan in horror. Tang Xiu took a deep breath and faintly asked him, "Do you want to be a cultivator to change this fate and destiny?" Of course, you still have time to regret your choice, but once you regret it, Li Kai and her mother are likely unsavable anymore. Hu Shaoquan solemnly replied, no. The lives of Li Kai and Aunt Zhuang must be preserved. Could you explain more? How can I change this fate, like you said, becoming a cultivator? Tang Xiu nodded. Become a cultivator and reach the spirit formation stage as quickly as possible and then wait until you leave this world for a higher plane. You'll never be under the law of this plane anymore once you leave this world. Then 3 of you can live worry-free and safely in another world. Can you really help me? Asked Hu Shaoquan hurriedly. I can help you, but you must cut off all relationships with your family members and sever any karmic ties you have with this world. Only then can I give you this chance. Tang Xiu said, as long as you seize this chance, you can join my sect and become a true cultivator. Hu Shaoquan glanced at the unconscious Li Kai lying on the bed. He then shifted to Aunt Zhuang, who was knocked out on the sofa. After hesitating for a long while, he made up his mind and nodded. Divine Dr. Tang, I've made up my mind. But I need you to perform a play for me later. Helping Hu Shaoquan out to devise ostensible reason was fine to Tang Xiu, so he immediately activated the array to perform the secret art. Snatching lives back from the King of Hell was a very dangerous method, but the blessing of the 4-spirit beast array, plus his considerable power, made it quite safe. Chapter 12:12, Precious Gift. Although Tang Xiu's cultivation level was not weak, he still seemed weak to snatch human lives from the hands of the King of Hell. After casting a secret method and activating the 4-spirit beasts array, he slowly began to communicate with the netherworld while shielding himself from the detection of the heavenly Tao laws. Bastard! Who is so audacious, daring to usurp the Book of Life and Death? From the dark underworld, a loud roar passed into Tang Xiu's heart. Then, an invisible force madly smashed the space barrier and bombarded the 4-spirit beasts array. Tang Xiu's heart wildly pounded hard and incredulity filled his eyes. He instantly severed the opponent's mental attack and spurted out a mouthful of blood. Then, he forced out a drop of blood essence and fused it into the 4-spirit beast array. Delineating souls, snatching lives, erase life and death. Tang Xiu bit his finger and quickly wrote a string of characters in midair when the blood was flowing out. Immediately after, the characters turned into a golden light and quickly merged into the 4-spirit beasts array. At this time, whether it was Hu Shaoquan sitting cross-legged on the floor, the lying Li Kai on the bed, or the leaning Aunt Zhuang on the sofa, their bodies trembled and they quickly opened their eyes. Disperse! Tang Xiu spat out a mouthful of blood yet again and powerfully punched towards the terrifying force outside the array. In the next moment, the clash between the two forces didn't create an explosion but instead melted like ice and gradually dissipated between heaven and earth. Right as the 4-spirit beasts array was broken, Tang Xiu took out 4 invisibility charms from the interspatial ring and quickly threw them at the 3 people and himself. Crack! As the 4 invisibility charms disintegrated, peace and tranquility returned to the surroundings. Tang Xiu's eyes focused on the ground with lingering fear and twitching lips. He never expected that the King of Hell who controlled the 6 paths of samsara on earth would have such a terrible and fearsome power. It must be noted that Earth was just an ordinary world that was usually classified as a mortal world. It was reasonable to say that the King of Hell who governed such a plane would only have average power. However, the power of the King of Hell Tang Xiu just faced was absolutely stronger than ordinary immortals, which should have been impossible according to his knowledge. Fortunately, the strike of this super-powerful expert was blocked by various space barriers, or he would have been wiped out by that terrible power just now. That was 2F** King dangerous. I must never do something unprofitable and this dangerous again. Tang Xiu wiped off the bloodstain at the end of his lips. As he noticed the 3 pairs of eyes staring at him, he angrily shouted, "What the hell are you stupidly gawking for? Hurry up and help me stand. Did you see that I just went against heaven's will and paid a great price to change your life so that you won't die? Li Kai bounced up from the bed and felt that the weakening feeling she had in the past few days was all gone now. She rushed towards Tang Xiu with a worried face and said, "Are you all right, Divine Dr. Tang? Did you just save me?" "Who else, huh? Do you think God saved you out of his mercy or something?" Tang Xiu grunted snappily. "Cut the nonsense and just help me take out my cell phone. I need to make a call." "Oh. Okay." Afterward, Li Kai carefully propped Tang Xiu up and then asked in a low voice, "Who do you want to call, Divine Dr. Tang?" Find Gu Xiaoshue's name on the phone book and dial the number. "I just exhausted everything I have and I don't even have the strength to raise my arm." Such an overwhelming weak sensation was something Tang Xiu had never experienced after he returned to Earth. Not even when he hadn't yet started cultivating. All the strength in his body was nearly emptied in a flash, and even the planets in his dantian dimmed and looked like some dead stars now. Furthermore, he felt like his head was cracking apart. He would have passed out had it not been for his formidable mental strength. "Hello, Grand Master." Gu Xiaoshue's voice came from the mobile phone. "Xiaoshue, quickly tell Ji Qimei to rush to Shanghai immediately." Tang Xiu ordered, "Something happened to me and I need her to hold the fort in Shanghai. Remember. I forbid you to tell your master about this. I don't want her to be worried." This, understood. The phone call directly ended. After 4+ minutes passed, a figure appeared out of nowhere in the room. Incredulity immediately covered Ji Qimei's face the moment she sensed the power fluctuation in the surrounding air. She hurriedly asked, "Holy Lord, did you just fight with the king of hell of this plane?" "It was just a minor matter, but I never thought I would alarm the king of hell of this plane." Tang Xiu forced a bitter smile. "Besides, I never thought his power would be so great. It's just unbelievable. Even if he's not at the golden immortal stage, he is absolutely not much weaker." "Everything in this world is quite unusual from other worlds indeed," commented Ji Qimei. "You were careless this time, my lord." Tang Xiu nodded in response and sighed. "I know. Well, it already happened and my purpose is already achieved, so it's still a victory albeit the danger. Also, you're to stay in Shanghai next week. The auction is going to be held soon and I'm worried that some cultivators from other forces will come to make trouble." Ji Qimei took a holy healing pill from her interspatial ring, stuffed it into Tang Xiu's mouth and said, "This subordinate will carry out your wish, my lord. Don't just give me the holy healing pill. I'm so spent I can't even lift a finger now. Give me some essence amassing pills and stand guard to protect me," said Tang Xiu. "Understood." Ji Qimei took out some essence amassing pills and stuffed them into Tang Xiu's mouth. She straightly ignored the 3 people in the room and sat cross-legged in front of Tang Xiu and silently protected him. 2 full days passed. Tang Xiu took 36 essence amassing pills and was only barely able to recover half of his strength. However, it was difficult for him to fully recover the loss of his blood essence. He would at least need over a month for it. Li Kai, her mother, and Hu Shaokuan had already left the room 2 days ago, but Hu Shaokuan still remembered Tang Xiu's instructions before, so the 3 of them stayed in the next room all the time and had their meals delivered to the room. Li Kai and her mother also learned about what Tang Xiu said from Hu Shaokuan. All of them were restless and in a tense mood, and only felt slightly relieved since their lives were saved. Knock, knock. Tang Xiu and Ji Qimei went to the next room and knocked on the door before entering. He then saw the sleepy Hu Shaokuan, An Shuang and Li Kai, who was sitting cross-legged in cultivation on the floor. "Are you okay, Divine Dr. Tang?" Aunt Shuang's spirit jolted as she got up and approached. "I haven't fully recovered yet, but it won't hinder my activities." Tang Xiu said, "By the way, I know your surname is Zhuang. May I know your name?" "My name is Zhuang Xinjie," answered Aunt Shuang. "I don't know what Hu Shaokuan has told you, Zhuang Xinjie." But I need to tell you that you now have two options ahead of you. Tang Xiu nodded and said, the first one is to follow me and join my sect. And you must reduce any contact with others as much as possible in the next few decades. You must also cultivate with all your strength and then wait for me to set off for another world. Your second option is to ignore my warning, but if you're too involved with the outside world, you can cause too many karmic disruptions. Should you do so, the chance is high that you'll be discovered by the heavenly Tao laws of this world and become the target to be obliterated. Once it happens, your soul will completely scatter and you'll never be able to reincarnate ever again. Divine Dr. Tang, my daughter, and I have discussed this after hearing Xiaokuan's explanation. We've made up our minds to follow you and become cultivators. Zhuang Xinjie hastily replied, you're the one who saved us, mother and daughter, so we'll follow your orders in the future. I have made up my mind just like Aunt Zhuang and Li Kai. I'll follow your order too, said Hu Xiaokuan. Then I'll send you all to Nine Dragons Island since all of you have made a decision, said Tang Xiu. That place is the home of the Tang sect. Wait until you get there and some people will arrange the place for you to settle and some others will teach you cultivation techniques. You're going to stay there in the future. But you haven't helped me with the ostensible reason yet, Divine Dr. Tang. Hu Xiaokuan interjected quickly. How do you want me to help you? Asked Tang Xiu. I want to make it seem like I'm dead to withdraw from my life and nobody except my father can tell, said Hu Xiaokuan. Only in this way can I fully sever my relationship with my previous life. There's no need to worry about it if your request is this simple. All right, you go with Li Kai and her mother to Nine Dragons Island directly. I'll make the members of Hu family believe that you've died. Hu Xiaokuan hesitated but finally nodded. All right. Then I'll call my father and we'll wait for your people's arrival. All right. You'll need to call me sect master from now on. Also, you're disciples of the Tang sect from now on, said Tang Xiu. You must never tell anyone anything about the Tang sect without my permission. Understood. N. The three of them nodded. Li Kai suddenly said, Divine Dr. Tang. No. Sect Master, I told you before that I'd like to present you with a token of my gratitude if you can save my mother. Please accept this. I hope you don't refuse and like it. Tang Xiu looked at the gift box Li Kai gave him. He didn't turn her down and directly stuffed it into his interspatial ring after receiving it. Then, he said, I accept your intention and gratitude no matter what the gift is. Won't you open it? Asked Li Kai hesitantly. Tang Xiu zoned out for a second and immediately smiled. Well, since you want me to open it now, I'll take a look then. He took back the gift box from the interspatial ring and slowly opened it. But his expression turned dull the moment he saw the lifelike crystalline jade pig inside it. With his current power, he could easily sense the energy fluctuations in the jade pig. This one is the jade pig of the 12 zodiac jade carvings? Tang Xiu was excited inwardly. He turned to Li Kai and said, Li Kai, I really like your present and this is also something I need. Thank you. Li Kai immediately looked happy after hearing this and said, Dr. Tang. Sect Master, I'm really glad you like it. All right, then. I'm going back first since your issues have been resolved. Tang Xiu smiled and said, also, you just need to stay put. Someone will come and take you away later. Chapter 12-13, The Way of the Strong. Tang Xiu left the Blue Starfish Mansion with Ji Qimei. When he returned to his house in the Blue Star Villa complex, Kong Xia, Mu Weiniang, and Ouyang Lulu were already in the living room, looking worried and restless. They immediately ran over after seeing him return. Are you all right? Why did you disappear for 2 days? We went to the Blue Starfish Mansion to find you, but you were nowhere to be found. Where did you go these 2 days? We were really worried about you. Looking at these three women express their true feelings and concern towards him, Tang Xiu felt warm and good inside. He consoled them and then slowly said, I was actually staying in the Blue Starfish Mansion all the time. Only, I had to treat the patient and I couldn't be disturbed by anything from the outside, so I told Ji Chime to stand guard. Well, I'm back already, so let's not talk about this anymore. Let's talk about the current situation in Shanghai. I'm sure a lot of super rich people have come here since the auction is getting near, right? That's for sure, even the number makes me scared. Ouyang Lulu was the first to speak. The entire Shanghai is now in high alert and the security level has been raised to the highest level. Honey, I don't think you know about this yet. All 4 stars and 5 stars hotels in the whole of Shanghai have been fully reserved by various super rich people from various countries, all over the world, as well as those billionaires from the country. Our Paradise Manor is also fully occupied now. I've been staying at the Genesis auction house for the last 2 days. Kong Xia said, there are already more than 1,600 rich people who have contacted Haolei to confirm their attendance in the auction. There's only a day left from the deadline, so I believe the number of attendances will still explode before tomorrow evening. Haolei herself predicted that the number of rich people participating in the auction will be at least 2,000. Have you investigated them? Especially their identities and their wealth, asked Tang Xiu. It's been investigated thoroughly. Kong Xia nodded. Further, we have also checked the liquid cash of each participant. All of them meet our requirements. Also, each of them has paid 1 million in admission fee and we have collected more than 160 million yuan as of now. Well, it's a bit unexpected to me, but the more these rich people attend our auction, the more we prove the auction can make a sensation all over the world. Tang Xiu chuckled. By then, not only can we profit a lot, but this event can also serve to propel up the reputation of Genesis Auction House. And we can expect to see it become another money-making machine in the future. The next day, Tang Xiu went to the Genesis auction house with Ji Chime. Just as he arrived at the entrance, he was squeezed aside by a group of 4 men and women. One man among them even glared at him and then spoke to the registration staffer, we must attend this auction. This is 4 million for the admission fee. These 4 cards are the standard international black cards with 200 million US dollars on each card. Hurry up and register our names. All right. Please wait for a bit. The registrar politely replied. Tang Xiu stood behind the 4 people and just swept over at their backs. Then, he transmitted his voice to Ji Chime. This auction has even attracted various freaks and monsters like these ones. This is interesting. They seem to be really loaded as well. Indeed. They should be some divergent races since I can sense a beastly smell from them, replied Ji Chime. Well, whoever comes here is a guest. Tang Xiu faintly smiled. Whether they are divergent races or not, will receive their money according to their bills. But I need you to hold the fort here in the following events. Do not show mercy to those who dare to snatch the items of our auction house. Capture them first and squeeze them to find out their background. But directly kill those who act unbridled. Understood. Ji Chime nodded. Tang Xiu waved and casually motioned her to move, then he went straight into the auction house. He took the elevator to the 3rd floor and saw Haolei waiting outside after the elevator's doors opened. Sect Master. Haolei respectfully greeted. Anything happened in the last 2 days? Asked Tang Xiu. No, Haolei shook her head. Everything is going well. Tang Xiu nodded in response and said, I've brought Ji Chime here, so we don't need to worry about disturbances. Also, you need to prep everything needed for the auction in advance. Invite some members of the world's most famous auction house if you don't know what to prepare and be sure to find an outstanding host, even if you must spend some funds. Well, Ouyang Lulu has invited the most famous host of the Red Spider auction house in Las Vegas yesterday. This host is very excellent and I've watched the auctions he has hosted. Every auction he hosts always reaps massive profits. Ouyang Lulu? Tang Xiu was surprised and asked, how did she get acquainted with this outstanding host? A strange expression appeared on Hao Lei's beautiful face before she covered her mouth and giggled. Well, I asked her about this too. She told me that she had a fight with this golden host and none of them ended up the winner. Just like a story when you and a friend after exchanging blows, they then gradually became friends. It's said that this golden host once visited Jingmen Island on a trip and encountered some troubles there. Then Ouyang Lulu stood up for him and dealt with his problems and accompanied him to tour around for a few days. Tang Xiu quickly understood and smilingly said, that was her indeed. Only she can pull out such a stunt. Anyways, let's head to your office. I need to talk to you. Hao Lei nodded and was about to lead the way for Tang Xiu to her office when her cell phone suddenly rang. After she exchanged words for a few seconds, her face slightly changed. She quickly glanced at Tang Xiu and said, some people are causing a scene downstairs, Sect Master. I heard they're about to fight. Who are they? Tang Xiu furrowed his brows and asked. Our men downstairs have no idea about their identity yet, replied Hao Lei. Let's head downstairs and have a look together since we're here. Tang Xiu said, I don't care whoever it is, but even the Heavenly Emperor must abide by the rules of our auction house for the following days. On the first floor, 4 men and women stood in front of the registration desk and exchanged glares with a man and a woman. A contemptuous look flashed in one of the burly man's eyes as he spoke to the man in front. You're really a coward hiding behind a woman, Anqianu. If it wasn't for her protection, I would have packed you up, twisted your neck, and used your skull as a wine cup. Anqianu's face looked a bit pale and turned to the gorgeous Belle beside him before lowering his head without retorting back. Beside him, however, the Belle looked angry and glared at the seemingly cowardly Anqianu. Then she shifted to the 4 people in front and coldly snorted. Humph, shut your stinking holes if you 4 don't want to lie on the bed for a few months again. I'm in a good mood today and I don't want to bicker over shits with you, else you can try to piss me off and I'll make you look great. The big Caucasian man obviously dreaded the Belle a bit. He hummed twice and said, Angelo, this chick is the one who made you severely injured before, isn't she? Stop zipping your mouth and looking so sullen, will you? Let's just join hands and finish her directly. We 4 will bear it together if the Grand Elders blame us. I'm sure we won't be severely punished by the Grand Elder given our status. The man called Angelo shook his head and said, I came for the elixirs and weapons this time, not to cause a scene. You can have a go and kill them yourself. But I'm warning you in advance. The magnificent Tang Corporation is the shareholder of this Genesis auction and they hate troublemaking foreigners. I'm sure you've heard about what happened in Star City over a month ago. Do it yourself if you really don't want to attend the auction. After hearing this, the big white man immediately spat at the Belle and sneered. I'm not gonna pack you up today. Just wait for the auction to end. The 4 of us will teach you a lesson later. We'll make you know that any man in the world is much better than your spineless companion. You court death. The Belle instantly dashed forward and a sharp dagger swept across the white man's neck, causing a stream of blood to slowly leak out from the wound. The white man didn't expect that she would directly attack to kill him. His head would have rolled down if he hadn't avoided the strike fast enough. Bitch. The white man himself had a short fuse with his powder keg-like temper. A huge aura burst out from him as he dashed at the Belle in that instant. His golden-gloved right fist flashed as he delivered tens of golden punches instantly while hurling out a stream of loud curses. Bam, bam. A blurry figure suddenly appeared and nearly in the blink of an eye, the big man and the Belle were sent flying after the clash. Tang Xiu then clapped and overbearingly spoke, I don't give a damn if you fight someplace else. But if you all want to play gangsters in my Genesis auction house, don't blame the staff here acting ruthless towards you. Register now or get the hell out. The fearsome strength displayed by Tang Xiu deterred the Caucasian man and his companions. After hesitating for a while, they finally gave up retaliating and left with sullen and awkward expressions. But the belle, whose face now looked a bit pale, kept staring at Tang Xiu. This man was definitely very young, yet he was able to beat her and the big white man, which showed that he had a fearsome strength. Tang Xiu stared back at the belle and said in a deep voice, "What are you staring for? Hurry up and register and move your feet out of this place. And only come again when the auction starts." "What's your name, handsome?" asked the belle. "I'm the owner of this Genesis auction house." Tang Xiu lightly replied, "You can call me Tang." Chapter 12-14, The Auction Begins. The belle stared blankly before her expression changed into a surprised one. She originally thought that Tang Xiu was at most only a security guard of Genesis auction house. It never came to her that he was the owner. "He's not ordinary." The thought flashed in her mind and she immediately said faintly, "Since Mr. Tang personally took action, then I won't care about this minor wolf cub anymore. Anyway, may I have the honor to invite you to dinner, Mr. Tang?" The expression of Anqianu beside the belle changed before he looked a bit humiliated. He cried out in a low voice, "Shania." The belle glanced at him with indifference and lightly said, "Having dinner with Mr. Tang is quite an honor, but you can scram and hit the bunk if you don't like it." "What do you mean by that?" yelled Anqianu. Tang Xiu secretly shook his head and raised his hand. "Cut it out, both of you. I still have something else to do this evening, so I'm afraid I can't accompany you for dinner. Please leave after you both have registered yourselves." Having said that, his eyes instantly turned fierce and filled with killing intent as he spoke with a heavy voice. "The Genesis auction house has a rule that no one is allowed to fight and make a scene here. Those who do so will tear all decorum with us and no one can afford the consequences should they try it." The short storm ended after Tang Xiu revealed his strength, but the news about the incident spread very fast and became known to these rich people from various countries in just a few hours. Many of whom then began sending their people to investigate it and finally affirmed that the owner of the Genesis auction house was also the owner of the magnificent Tang Corporation. Tang Xiu. Furthermore, even the news that Tang Xiu was actually a cultivator also proliferated. Immediately afterward, these wealthy people issued invitations to Tang Xiu, hoping that they could invite him to dinner. It was just common knowledge for anyone concerned that the main purpose of these invitations was nothing else but an attempt to be on good terms with Tang Xiu, so they could obtain better advantages and more benefits in the auction. After Tang Xiu declined all of them, he didn't return to the Blue Star Villa complex and kept staying at the Genesis auction house. Aside from spending the last few days in cultivation, he also refined several kinds of exquisite tools, most of which were accessories that didn't have any functions to help to improve the strength of cultivators, as its only function was for defense. December 1st. At 6 in the morning, Tang Xiu appeared at the rooftop of Genesis auction house with Ji Qimei, who had been standing there quietly while watching the streams of people at the entrance. The number of people attending the auction was more than 2,400. Each registered magnate could only bring one subordinate, which meant that the number of people attending the auction was more than 4,800. The venue itself was large enough to accommodate 5,000 plus people, so the number of attendees was still acceptable. "Is it time to open the entrance, my lord?" Ji Qimei turned around and asked. "It is." Tang Xiu nodded. "But this auction is very important, so I need you to use your spiritual sense to check everyone if they bring any weapons." "I already checked these people with my spiritual sense and nearly all of them are carrying weapons. Some are even carrying magic weapons." Ji Qimei replied, "I think it will be rather troublesome if we forbid them to carry weapons into the auction venue." Tang Xiu pondered about it for a short while and immediately forced a smile. "Since there's no way we can forbid them to do so, then forget it. But if anyone dares to make trouble at the auction, kill them directly." Afterward, he took out his cell phone and dialed Hao Lei's number, saying, "Open the gate and verify the attendees' identities. Let them enter the auction venue according to their number plate." And do remember to warn them seriously that anyone who doesn't take the seat according to their number plate will be expelled from the auction house once they are found. Understood. Hao Lei curtly replied. After she hung up, she quickly appeared at the auction house's entrance. Tens of stalwart men then moved to control the situation, and Hao Lei began speaking in a deep voice. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now check and verify the number plate given to you when you registered before. You can enter the auction venue after the verification procedure. Also, I'd like to remind you of another thing. Please take a seat according to your number plate. If our staff finds out someone took someone else's seat, they will expel you from the auction venue. In the next 2 hours, more than 4,800 people entered the auction venue one after another. Spacious sofas had been lined with a small wooden cabinet between each with drinks, fruits, and snacks already served. The auction platform itself was set on the innermost side with 2 meters in height and over 100 square meters in size, while several large projectors played the advertisements of the products of the magnificent Tang Corporation and Grand Fortune Jewelry. At exactly 8 o'clock. The golden host, Higgert, who was invited by Hao Lei and Ouyang Lulu from the Red Spider Auction House in Las Vegas, United States, appeared on the auction stage with a beaming smile on his face. His blonde hair and blue eyes, as well as his tall figure dressed in a tuxedo, made the man look attractive and handsome. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this mysterious, magical and beautiful oriental country of China. And welcome to Shanghai, the Pearl of the East. And lastly, I welcome everyone to our Genesis auction house and thank you for your participation in our first auction. My name is Higgert, the golden host of the Genesis auction house and also the host of this auction. Well, I'm very excited at this moment since I've never hosted a grand auction like this one and I've never been the focus of attention from these many super rich people all over the world. Fortunately, the articles being auctioned by our Genesis auction house gave me the confidence and energy. Otherwise, I'd have to bow and lower my head to speak in front of such big personages like yourselves, right? The simple opening with a fine sense of humor quickly won a favorable impression from many people. Immediately after, Higgert announced that the auction had officially started. All right. The first item to be auctioned is a set of precious and incomparable jewelry. Apart from being beautiful, this jewelry also has another effect which, well, even I'm not familiar with this defense term. But according to our assignor, any guest who wears this jewelry can withstand the full blow of a nascent soul stage practitioner. However, as I've been told, this effect will only last thrice facing the blow of such a degree. In other words, having this set of jewelry equals to having 3 more lives. The base price for this item is $1 billion with the bid increment of at least $50 million. So without further ado, let us begin the auction now. Higgert then turned to the beautiful staffer beside him. He lifted the cover on the tray and a set of exquisite jewelry then appeared on the projector screens. Wow! At least 1/3 of the guests in the entire auction venue was in an uproar. They never dreamed that the first auctioned article of the Genesis auction house turned out to be a magic tool manufactured for cultivators. Moreover, it was a defensive type tool, a magic tool in the form of jewelry. The guests' reaction made Higgert excited inwardly. In order to raise the price of the jewelry further, he added, "Honorable ladies and gentlemen, even if you don't need it, you can give this exquisite defensive jewelry to the person you care most, such as your wife or your child." We all know that our society is fraught with dangers nowadays, and I'm sure many of you have also watched the Final Destination movie, right? Dangers and death are probably around us all the time, so please start bidding if you want to avoid those dangers and protect your own life. And as mentioned before, each bid increment is set to at least $50 million. $2 billion. A Caucasian man grabbed a loudspeaker and cried out aloud. His eyes weren't looking at Higgert nor glancing at the others around, but fixedly stared jewelry showed on the projector screen. $2.1 billion. $2.2 billion. 2. Although the Caucasian man directly doubled the price, he still couldn't stop the increased price of the bids. As many people already aware of, what Higgert said was right, that having this jewelry was equal to having 3 more lives. The price kept increasing dramatically, and its dramatic increase made Higgert flabbergasted. His heart pounded harder and beat faster than when he hosted his first auction. $4 billion. A loud voice came from the audience, and a white-haired old man with a walking stick quoted his bid. Higgert felt like his scalp went a bit numb. He had hosted hundreds of auctions, and sometimes, money earned at the end of the auction could exceed $4 billion US. However, the number was the total sum of the whole auction. What about the $4 billion now? It was just from the first article being auctioned. The white-haired man got up and his other hand grabbed the loudspeaker and asked, "Mr. Host, why don't you announce that this jewelry is mine since no one else is bidding?" Higgert was as though awakened from a dream and hurriedly replied, "Honorable sir, please don't laugh at me. I'm really shocked by your amazing bid, which made me a bit disoriented. I hope you don't laugh at me, a dirt poor man who has never seen so much money. All right, I hereby announce that this jewelry now belongs to this gentleman for $4 billion. Please send someone to the backstage to finalize the procedure now, sir." The old man slightly smiled and nodded to a man next to him after sitting down. Higgert calmed himself down first and then continued, "The second article to be auctioned is a magic weapon. It is said that this magic weapon has been used to slay some fierce beasts and even split a mountain several hundreds of meters high. Well, although I think the script given to me is rather exaggerated, it was the assignor who told me so I can only convey it to everyone here. The floor price for this item is $500 million.
Ah.
That's right, the person who trusted this item to us also mentioned that this lance is a very powerful magic weapon." Chapter 12:15, House Tang's Major Event. The focus of over 4,800 guests at the auction venue was fully aimed at the magic lance on the table, on the auction platform, as well as its enlarged picture on the projector screen. At the same time, the breathing of thousands of practitioners turned heavy as their desires were aroused. In this world, such a magic weapon was something one could only find through fortuitous encounters, but not at will. If the cultivator was an expert spearman and obtained this lance, that person would definitely become more powerful and his combat effectiveness would rise exponentially. $2.5 billion. It's the amount of liquid cash I can put out. Don't blame me for being ruthless if any of you choose to compete with me for it. You'll die without a burial place." A 2-meter-tall hulking man growled with bloodshot eyes. $3 billion. Do you think I'll be afraid of you? A bald man abruptly got up overbearingly and shouted aloud. The giant man's expression greatly changed and a murderous aura crazily burst out from him, as his figure instantly bolted away toward the auction platform and tried to grab the magic weapon. Slash. A sword beam suddenly appeared out of the blue and slashed the giant man's body into halves in midair. The instant after, a large aquamarine net instantly appeared and enveloped the giant man's remains and disappeared near the entrance to the auction floor. Gasp. All the guests attending the auction abruptly got up and gasped at this moment. Many of them knew who the giant man was. They knew how powerful he was, yet they didn't expect that he would be killed instantly, and none of them was able to see the person who did it. Who could it be? Who has such a fearsome power? All of a sudden, everyone felt a chill on their necks and fear inside their hearts. The fearsome strike had deterred them completely. Tang slowly walked out of the other entrance. As he came to the auction platform and came to Higgert calmly, he lightly patted Higgert's shoulder first and motioned him that he had nothing to worry about. Afterward, he grabbed the microphone and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I set up this Genesis auction house to run a business. I don't want anyone to make trouble here. Whoever dares to snatch any article other than obtaining it through legal transactions must prepare themselves to die." The moment after, Duanmu Lin stood in the first row of the seats. He floated up and then descended next to Tang Xiu. After nodding to Tang Xiu, he received the microphone and said, "Tang Xiu is right. This is China. Use your money if you want to get what you want. But if you just want to be a bandit and rob the auction articles, not only will you violate the laws of this country, but you will also face China's Special Abilities Bureau." The guests exchanged dismayed glances with disbelief on their faces. They already knew that Tang Xiu was the owner of Genesis Auction House, and it was understandable that he would come out in person after such an incident. But how did an official from China's Special Abilities Bureau also come out? Could it be that the party behind this auction is China's Special Abilities Bureau? Many cultivators did intend to rob the items directly if they couldn't buy the items they desired at first. But now it seemed like not only was there a mysterious expert holding the fort in the dark, there was also another entity, China's Special Abilities Bureau. The latter alone was a force they couldn't afford to provoke that easily, else they'd likely end up dying here. The following events were carried out very smoothly. Except for the first two items which were sold at high prices. The latter auction items were just ordinary antiques and jewelry that were sold at reasonable prices. The auction proceedings for these items lasted until noon with a total of more than 80 articles. At lunch, the auction held by Genesis Auction House was quite peculiar and designed to appeal to affluent customers, while the Everlasting Feast Hall in Shanghai had too few chefs. Thus, quite a number of chefs had been temporarily transferred from Jingmen Island, Beijing, and Hong Kong to prepare the needed rich meals. Tang Xiu himself had ordered some people to deliver 200 boxes of God's nectar from the magnificent Tang Corporation warehouse, all of which were served to all guests free of charge. As the clock hit 2 p.m. and all these rich people had enough drinks and meals, the auction resumed. The first 4 articles auctioned in the afternoon session were still subjects of fierce biddings and were sold at sky-high prices. The first day of the auction was then concluded at 8 in the evening. 12 o'clock at night. In the GM's office on the 3rd floor of the Genesis Auction House, when Andy, who was in charge of finance, arrived and reported the earning records, Tang Xiu, Hao Lei, Kong Xia, and even Ji Qimei looked at her with faces full of anticipation. Andy slightly smiled and raised the account statement in her hand. She then said with a beaming face, "We've checked and calculated the data. A total of 180 articles have been sold today, with total revenue of $46.832 billion US. Tang Xiu slowly let out a breath of relief. Although he knew that the amount of money he made today was astronomical, he still felt a bit excited after he heard the specific number. "I think the revenue we can obtain tomorrow won't be as high, but it's very likely that the last day of the auction 2 days later will definitely make us flabbergasted. I just can't help but look forward to the total revenue earned after the conclusion of this 3-day auction. Also, be it the magnificent Tang Corporation or Grand Fortune Jewelry, both will need to stay low profile afterward. However, all Tang sect disciples must keep moving everywhere to purchase a lot of cultivation resources around the world." The 3rd day passed. The unprecedented auction held by Genesis Auction House that had become a sensation all over the world had finally concluded, and all the guests who attended the auction participated in the biddings and bought hundreds of articles had all left. The total revenue was $180 billion US, equal to over 1 trillion yuan. The auction earned Tang Xiu a colossal amount of money, and the days of being strapped for funds had finally come to an end. Beijing, House Tang's residence. Tang Guisheng had issued an order to summon all members of House Tang to return to their ancestral house. Members of the house were coming one after another, and even Tang Yunpeng, who was in charge of major issues in the outside world, rushed back in a hurry. What exactly happened? Tang Yunpeng, who had a high position outside, unintentionally burst out an aura of someone in power even if he didn't mean to when he asked Tang Min, who had just arrived. The latter only shook her head and said that she was also in the dark about it. Suddenly, Tang Min said, "Anyway, it seems that Tang Xiu has arrived in Beijing about 2 hours ago. If my hunch is correct, he should be discussing some issues with father now." Tang Yunpeng looked a bit surprised. After he entered the room with Tang Min, he saw his father, Tang Guisheng, sitting on the sofa with a complicated expression and apparently thinking about a complex issue, whereas his second uncle, Tang Guisheng, and third uncle, Tang Guishou, looked excited instead, even though their fingers that clamped cigarettes were slightly trembling. First uncle. Tang Xiu got up and greeted respectfully. Tang Yunpeng smiled in response. He walked to Tang Xiu and patted his shoulder, sighing. I have been imagining to what extent you can reach many times, but now I understand that I still underestimated you. You earned over 1 trillion yuan from one auction. I don't think even the total revenue of all banks in China in a year can compare to that. Well, I also paid quite a lot for this auction, first uncle. Tang Xiu forced a smile. Power is the foundation of a clan, but wealth is a weapon of the family. Tang Yunpeng nodded and went on. House Tang is getting more powerful and even has faintly become the largest family in the whole China. It's all mainly from your contribution. I'm afraid that I'll also become a variable for the decline of House Tang to become an ordinary family in China as well, uncle. Tang Xiu forced a smile yet again. Tang Yunpeng furrowed his brows and asked, what do you mean by that? Tang Guisheng sighed and waved to him as he forced a smile and said, I'll explain to you later, Yunpeng. I summoned everyone here due to some important things I need to announce. Tang Yunpeng looked doubtful and hesitated, then he walked to the door and called all the core members of House Tang into the room. All pairs of eyes then kept shifting from Tang Xiu to Tang Guisheng. Tang Guisheng took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, all core members of House Tang have arrived, so I'm now announcing one issue. All of you listen to me. Starting today, Tang Yunpeng will take over the patriarch position of House Tang and he will be responsible and has the right to decide every affair in the family. Father. Tang Yunpeng's expression changed and he hurriedly called out. He quickly glanced over at his second uncle, Tang Guisheng, and third uncle, Tang Guishou, only to find that they didn't seem to care about it, as though they had learned about the issue in advance. Yunpeng, I'm already old and it's just time to hand over the responsibility and rights over the family, so don't blame your father for making this decision. Tang Guisheng spoke, our family needs you to manage it on your shoulder alone. You can pick out a successor after you carry out the job for 10 years before you can relax afterward. But this really baffles me, father. Tang Yunpeng frowned and said, I can't blame you on anything even if I take over your position as the head of the family, right? Isn't this supposed to be a happy event that I should feel happy about? Tang Guisheng shook his head with a forced smile and then spoke again, then, I declare my last order as the head of Tang family. Aside from Yunpeng, the other core members of House Tang will have to relinquish their official positions in the government or other business affairs. Arrange the matter with the government well, whereas the business side will be handed over to the magnificent Tang Corporation under Kong Xiao's management. What? What's going on? This? Each and every member of the Tang family was stunned and looked at Tang Guisheng in disbelief. It seemed like this order shocked them the most. Leaving their position, handing over their authority as well as their businesses? What kind of huge accident happened in the Tang family, exactly? Else, how could it? I give you all 7 days to deal with all your issues. Tang Guisheng went on in a deep voice. A week later, all core members of House Tang will leave Beijing and China. I believe you all know about 9 Dragons Island Xiu has bought before. That will be the place where all core members of our family will migrate to. Our family will no longer be involved in worldly affairs anymore starting from now on aside from Yunpeng alone. Every one of you will focus all your energy to practice martial arts and cultivation.